Richard Boyle's whistleblowing case could ruin his life because he faced a series of legal challenges and risks after going public with his allegations of unethical and aggressive debt collection practices by the Australian Taxation Office, ATO. Here are some of the main obstacles and dangers he encountered. He was denied whistleblower protections under the Public Interest Disclosure Act, PID Act, which is supposed to shield public servants who expose wrongdoing from prosecution and reprisal. A South Australian District Court judge ruled that the PID Act only covered the act of disclosing information, not the acts of gathering evidence or recording conversations, which Boyle did to support his claims. The judge also said that Boyle should have taken alternative lawful steps to make his disclosures, such as going to the Inspector General of Taxation or the Commonwealth Ombudsman. Boyle has appealed this decision, arguing that the judge applied the wrong standard of proof and took an unreasonably narrow interpretation of the PID Act. He was charged with 24 criminal offenses, including breaching secrecy provisions, using a listening device without consent, and dishonestly obtaining a benefit. These charges carry a maximum penalty of life imprisonment if convicted. The Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions, CDPP, initially laid 66 charges against Boyle, but reduced them after a public outcry and a review by former federal court judge Robert Bromwich. However, the CDPP has decided to proceed with the remaining charges, despite calls from civil society groups, legal experts, and politicians to drop the case or grant Boyle immunity. He suffered from complex post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, as a result of his whistleblowing ordeal. He said he experienced harassment, intimidation, and isolation at work, as well as threats to his personal safety and reputation. He also accused the ATO of being callous and indifferent to taxpayer complaints and suicide risks. He said he felt betrayed by the system that was supposed to protect him and reward him for speaking up against corruption and abuse of power. These are some of the legal challenges and risks that Richard Boyle faced after going public with his whistleblowing case. His case is a stark example of how Australia's laws fail to protect whistleblowers like him, and how whistleblowing can have devastating consequences for one's life and career. The implications and impacts of Richard Boyle's case for whistleblowers, the public interest, the ATO, and the government are profound and far-reaching. They expose the flaws and weaknesses of the current whistleblower protection regime, raise questions about the ATO's accountability and culture, and highlight the need for reform and support. Richard Boyle is a former ATO tax officer who became a whistleblower in October 2017. He went to the media after the tax office rejected his public interest disclosure about unethical debt collection practices at the ATO, such as issuing garnishee notices without proper consideration of taxpayer circumstances. He also alleged that he faced bullying and harassment from his managers for raising his concerns internally. Instead of being protected by the Public Interest Disclosure Act, PID Act, which is supposed to shield whistleblowers from reprisals and prosecution, Boyle was charged with 24 offenses, including breaching secrecy laws, recording conversations without consent, and taking photographs of taxpayer information. He could face up to life in prison if convicted. In March 2023, Boyle lost his legal bid to be declared immune from prosecution as a whistleblower in the South Australian District Court. The judge ruled that the PID Act only provided immunity for the act of disclosing a public interest disclosure statement and did not extend to the acts reasonably necessary to formulate that statement. Boyle has lodged an appeal against this decision, arguing that the judge applied the wrong test and took an unreasonably narrow interpretation of the PID Act. Boyle's case was the first proper test of the whistleblower protections and was widely seen as crucial in understanding the gaps and shortcomings in the current regime. His case has revealed that Australia's laws cannot protect whistleblowers like him, who may have to resort to unlawful acts while gathering evidence to expose wrongdoing. His case has also shown that whistleblowers face enormous personal and professional risks, such as losing their jobs, facing criminal charges, suffering from mental health issues, and being ostracized by their colleagues. Boyle's case has also raised serious questions about the ATO's accountability and culture. As one of the most powerful government agencies in Australia, the ATO has enormous discretion and influence over taxpayers' lives and businesses. However, Boyle's allegations suggest that the ATO may have abused its power and acted unethically and unlawfully in pursuing debts from vulnerable taxpayers. Boyle's case has also exposed the lack of effective oversight and independent review mechanisms for the ATO's actions and decisions. Boyle's case has also highlighted the need for reform and support for whistleblowers in Australia. His case has sparked calls for strengthening the whistleblower protection regime, such as expanding its scope, clarifying its provisions, increasing its penalties, and creating a dedicated whistleblower protection authority. His case has also prompted demands for providing more support and assistance for whistleblowers, such as legal aid, counseling, compensation, and recognition. Boyle's case is not only about his fate as a whistleblower. It is also about the fate of whistleblowing as a vital mechanism for exposing corruption, misconduct, and abuse of power in Australia. It is about the fate of public interest as a paramount value that should guide government agencies like the ATO. And it is about the fate of democracy as a system that relies on transparency, accountability, and integrity.